Okay, so let's say this is the graph that you're looking for. Okay, and if you want to write an absolute value inequality for this graph, remember the greater thans absolute values, they split up, and the less thans are sandwiched together. So remember the greators are the ors, the less thans are the sandwiched or the ands. Okay, so if we look at this, the general form is x minus some quantity compared to some symbol, your inequality symbol, and then the tolerance out here. Okay, so the way that we look at this is we find what is this midpoint or average between these. Okay, so to find the average, what do you do to find the average just by mental calculation? The average of two numbers is add them together and divide by the number of them. So here 2. So what is negative 3 plus 5 divided by 2? So we get 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 1 is what goes in this midpoint area. And then our tolerance is the distance from 1 to either of these forms. And it doesn't matter which one you calculate because it should be the same. And if you want to double check your answer, you can calculate both. But which one is easier to find the distance from? 1 to 5 or 1 to negative 3? Probably 1 to 5, right? What is the difference between 1 to 5? So we know that this distance is 4. So that means our comparison is going to be to 4. And now we just use the relationship of the graph. So the graph is split up, which means we're dealing with greater than. And are these critical points included in the set or excluded? Excluded, so do we need an equal here? No equal. So this is our absolute value inequality that represents this graph. Okay, let's take another example. Okay, give me a negative number. Okay, and give me a number that's to the left of that. Okay, so let's say we have negative 6 and negative 12. So let's say here's your graph. If we want to find the absolute value inequality form of this graph, so we know it's going to fit the form absolute value of x minus some quantity. We know that it opens to the outside, so which symbol can we use here? It's an or problem, so great or then. Okay. And will the solution set include these critical points? Yeah, so do we want an equal to here? Okay, so just by looking at this graph and not even thinking anything about it, you can get this much of your answer. Okay, so now all we need to do is find the midpoint between these. And then we find the tolerance or the distance from the midpoint to either of those sides. So what is the midpoint between negative 6 and negative 12? Okay, if we add these together, negative 12 plus a negative 6, we get negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9. So we get a negative 9 in here, so x minus a negative 9. And then what is the distance between this midpoint, negative 9, and either of these endpoints? 3. So the 3 is this tolerance. And so if we clean this up a little bit, don't ever put double signs of things. And so if you subtract a negative, just change it to a positive. And so here is your inequality, absolute value inequality to represent that particular interval.